put your brand internally and market your culture externally. Whereas people have been doing the culture internally and marketing their brand externally, we're now doing a shift swap so people understand that actually people buy into culture and the internal business needs to buy into brand.
Good evening and welcome to the 5th edition of Fortune Hunter TV. Tonight we have more informative insight from Linzi Boyd, one of the UK's leading brand experts. Charlie Mullins is also here to talk about his journey through the plumbing business, and it's a special celebration for Lyndon Wood as he celebrates 25 years in business.
Welcome to Fortune Hunter TV. Summer holidays are finished. For most of us, it's back to building our own businesses. For this episode, we're starting down at the Celtic Manor, where we meet up with Brad Burton.
The importance of being unique and different in business is unparalleled. We've all heard the story of the purple cow. No one stops to look at a normal cow, but everyone will stop to look at a purple cow. Uniqueness has to be authentic, it has to be you. Remember, why spend your life trying to fit in when you're born to stand out?
Well, you know, the thing is with me, if I think about my businesses, I used to be on these message forums on computer games. And a friend of mine, when I worked for a company over in London, he said to me, he said, Brad, you go into a room and you make everyone start talking. You're like a Brad grenade, right? Yeah. And I thought to myself, how can I make a business out of one, speaking to people online, and two, going into rooms and making people talk? Yeah. And that's why I started my networking business off. I had no idea what a complete nut job I'd come across as, right? True story, right? I had no idea, no idea, and I don't know if I'm coming across as a nut job now, but the point is I had no idea of you know, it's a bit like saying to a fish, what's the water like? Water? Doesn't know. I didn't realise I was fundamentally different to most people in business, and it was only until somebody sat me down and said, you are a bit different, that I actually recognised that. So prior to that point, 3 or 4 years ago, I was blissfully unaware of it.
Yeah. I mean, standing out is important, isn't it? I mean, you stand out clearly in business, and I, sort of preach about standing out in business. How important do you think that is?
I got booked by JCB, a big company, to speak, to their guys. And the reason I got booked is out of the 250 speakers that were there, I was the only one daft enough to have jeans, t-shirt and trainers on. Yeah. And as you might have seen with my seminars, there was 5 deep people trying to get in. So I'm fundamentally different. And I always ask people, how are you fundamentally different to your nearest competitors? And people go, oh, well, we're a web design company. What we do, we speak plain English, not geek. Well, guess what? So do your competitors. Yeah. I'm an IFA. I give away a free hour-1 review. So does everyone else. So how are you fundamentally different? Because if you're not fundamentally different, it's going to come down to price or personality every time. And if you're happy competing on price or personality, great. If you're not, be fundamentally different. And that's what I've tried to do with everything that I stand for. This is what I say to people. It's a great one for your audience, this, right? If you knew you only had 1 day left of your life, what would you do? Yeah. And I say to people, go and do it. And the same goes for this whole piece about, if I'm selling extra days of your life now for £1,000, how many would you want? If you knew you only had 1 day left, how many would you want? As many as you could afford. Yeah. And that says to me that today is as valuable as the last day of your life. The difference is we just take today for granted. Start looking at the whole thing and say, look, yes, you can have all the business success in the world, but if you've got all the business success in the world and you're unhappy, you've got no success. And when you start a business off, you've got that enthusiasm. Because that's what you have in the first 3 months. You've got so much enthusiasm, so much excitement that you're going to change the world and this, that and the other. And then what happens is your enthusiasm and your savings start dissipating at about the same rate. And that's when it gets real. So you've got to have a reason. If your only motivation is money, it's not enough. If your motivation is that you want to work your cobblers off for the next 10 years so that you can take your children to Disney World and that you can buy your parents private healthcare, then that'll keep you going a whole lot more than you want an Audi Q7 with 22-inch wheels. No. But if I know that if I'm paying my mum's private healthcare and I know if I'm taking my children to Disney World, guess what? I'm doing all right. Yeah. And this is what I say to people. If you've only got this want a £10 million business, sorry, it's not going to be enough. Use something, like you talk about rock climbing, use something where you can peg it. Say, right, if I get there, I've made distance and I've made progress.
Moving on from that, playing with personalities, relationship building, How important has that been in your career?
So the first thing to say is that if you're going to build a big business, you can't do it alone. And therefore, you're going to have to get on with people. And for the entrepreneur, something I ask for the entrepreneur to look at is to look at themselves and to do a kind of analysis and say what they're good at, which every entrepreneur can do, but then say what they're not so good at, which sometimes comes a bit more difficult.
But like you said, you know, the information and that mentorship is so important, more than the cash. Because if you have a bucket of cash, whether it was 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 or 1 million, if you're deploying it wrong because you haven't got the mentorship on how to deploy this effectively in your business, it is going to throw it in the Thames, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, totally. And so your father was obviously your prime initial mentor. Over the years, I'm sure you've had other guidance as well, whether you see them as mentors or whether you see them as information providers that have assisted you in making decisions. Have you experienced that through your career?
Yeah, I mean, and even today, I still look for people. I don't suppose I call them so much mentors anymore, but people I can go to and say, look, we're thinking about this, what do you think? You know, and people should never be ashamed of saying, I don't know the answer to that, and let me go and find out.
So trust played a major factor then, and yeah. So do you develop the trust with people, or is it a case of they come into the fold, they've got a great CV, they interviewed well, you trust them instantly?
Yeah, I mean, interviewing is a scary thing. I've never read a CV that said, tell you what, I'm really crap at this, and you know, that was a failure. So when I'm interviewing people, I'll always ask them, tell me about a failure, tell me what happened, tell me what you learned, tell me what you did. So, because people are not comfortable in this country with failure. But I spoke with Pierre Omidyar, who's one of the founders of eBay, who's now set up a venture fund in San Francisco. And his first question to people coming looking for money is, tell me about a failure. If they say, well, we haven't had any, well, go and have some and then come back and see me. Just such a healthy thing to say. And we need to educate people in Britain that it's not the end. No. It's another step.
Well, you can view failure as a university, can't you? Because you can learn from it more than a university.
Hopefully. Hopefully it's not terminal. And within eSpark, what they teach is if you're going to fail quick, fail cheap, and then start again.
And of course the failures, and going on to the mentorship is so important because it won't stop every failure or everything that is not quite the success you wanted it to be, but it'll certainly navigate you through the small bumps, the major bumps, and a few potholes in the road. Yeah,
I mean, we've been doing this a long time, helping people who want to start a business, help grow a business, and in the early days, the mentorship is the number one most important success factor.
Next up, Linzi Boyd, who's going to talk to us about the importance of you being the brand. Have you got the guts to go do it?
I left school at the age of 15, so I'm not the traditional, somebody that kind of went into further education and so forth. And at the age of 18, I opened my first retail shop in Leeds, and I started learning about retail. So I brought diesel and replay into the north of England, being a good old northern girl. And then at the age of 20, I sold that business to my then partner, and I set up a footwear brand. And I got very known in the market for spotting gaps in the market and seeing where future gaps were going. So we spotted a gap that was Nike and Adidas were doing sports-related trainers, and we decided to do fashion-related trainers. Well, nowadays, look, there's everyone like Converse and so forth, but at the time, it wasn't a saturated market. In the first season, we sold 130,000 pairs of shoes at the age of 20. Which was overwhelming as well at the same time. Can you imagine at the age of 20 and all of a sudden we had an order book of 130,000 pairs of shoes? So over 4 years, we set up 7 distribution channels, had to learn on the job about letter of credits and going to get funding and what that meant, and even things like foreign currency exchange and, you know, how to make money off foreign currency exchange, because we were opening up letter of credits and so forth. And the business boomed, and we had it in the design museum as design classics. We had a waiting list for the product, and we sold it to Caterpillar when I was 24. Right. So that was kind of a bit of a journey, because I really learned on that job around A, manufacturing, B, about production, and C, about building brands.
After the break, we hear more from Linzi Boyd on the importance of branding for your business.